All right, good morning. I have 10 a.m. We'll go ahead and get started here. Welcome to our second conference call here for the weather briefings for our annular eclipse taking place this Saturday. Two important updates here just to go over real quickly before we get started. As far as the schedule for the rest of the week, we're planning on doing these calls daily, today through Friday, with the calls taking place at 10 a.m. And then the day of the eclipse on Saturday, we'll have a call at 8 a.m. You shouldn't have to register individually for each one. As long as you've registered for one, you should be able to get into all of them. And then second, if you have any questions throughout the briefing, there should be an option for you to type in questions into a questions box, and I'll go through all of the questions at the very end of the briefing. So we'll go ahead and get started. Just some informational awareness for you. I'm sure most of you are aware. This is the annular eclipse taking place. The total eclipse, the one that will result in totality of sunlight, will take place next April. This is the annular eclipse when the moon passes between the sun and the earth. It's at its close to its furthest distance from the earth, so it doesn't quite cover the sun up completely. It will result in this kind of ring of fire around the moon. We'll see about 90% obscuration of the sunlight through the path of annularity, with those directly in the path seeing that 90% up to about 5 minutes. The actual start of the eclipse will take place around or shortly before 10:30 in the morning. Here's some select cities for you: Austin, San Antonio, and Uvalde, with the peak taking place just before noon and then ending around 1:30 in the afternoon. And on the top of that graphic is kind of what it's going to look like to you if you're in that path of 90% obscuration. The big thing that we want to push here as far as safety goes is that you are going to have to wear eclipse glasses throughout the entire eclipse, annular eclipse on Saturday. You won't have the option of taking those off like you will during the totality eclipse in April. So we definitely want to push wearing the eclipse glasses as far as safety goes. So let's jump into the actual weather forecast here. Just a few main points here. If you're interested just in today's forecast, we'll briefly cover that. There are some rain chances actually this afternoon and tonight, actually a connection to a tropical system in the Pacific, Lydia. We'll go over that here shortly. As far as the days leading up to the eclipse, Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday, we will see a warming trend Thursday and Friday ahead of a cold front. That cold front is on schedule right now to pass through the area sometime on Friday. We're still kind of trying to fine tune exactly when on Friday, but it's looking like a midday or an afternoon type frontal passage through south central Texas right now. And then we will have a chance for some breezy winds behind that front. We'll have to watch for some wind gusts. I'll go over that here in a minute. Currently, the weather forecast on Saturday is for dry conditions and cooler conditions behind the front. However, there are a few models that are showing some cloud cover possibly lingering along the Rio Grande, and we'll go over that here in a minute. So for today's forecast, I mentioned we do have some rain chances in the forecast this afternoon through tonight and into early tomorrow morning. That is actually connected in part with Hurricane Lydia over the Pacific, which is forecast to make landfall into Mexico, and then the remnants of that come across Mexico and the Gulf of Mexico tonight and into tomorrow. So there are some low chances for some rainfall tonight. The heavier amounts are going to be down across South and deep South Texas. Rainfall amounts this afternoon and tonight across South Central Texas should be generally under an inch. Now, as far as the frontal passes that we were talking about Friday, here's some weather maps from our Weather Prediction Center showing the frontal position Friday morning north of the area, and then Saturday morning south of the area. So sometime during the day, Friday, we expect that cold front to move through South Central Texas, and we do expect a dry frontal passage with that currently. As far as the high and low temperature forecast for Saturday, we've overlaid that with the path of the annular eclipse. You can see the lows behind this cold front into the 50s over the hill country Saturday morning, with 60s elsewhere. And then high temperatures for Saturday into the mid and upper 70s over the hill country, and around 80 or lower 80s elsewhere. Kind of breaking out our cloud cover forecast and our temperature forecast by hour, we'll go through 10 a.m., noon, and 2 p.m. here, kind of covering the eclipse time. Here's 10 a.m. The cloud cover forecast shows most of the area clear or mostly clear, but if you look along the Rio Grande, we are showing some possible partly cloudy conditions right along the Rio Grande. The temperature forecast at about 10 a.m. should be in the 60s for most areas, maybe pushing 70 along the Rio Grande. By noon, our temperatures up into the low to mid 70s for most areas, upper 60s over the hill country. Again, most areas mostly clear, but we're going to be watching along the Rio Grande for some possible cloud cover. Currently showing mostly clear to partly cloudy skies along the Rio Grande. And then 2 p.m., again, mostly clear skies for most areas. And then we should be reaching close to our peak temperature for the day, low 80s for most areas, upper 70s across the hill country. Now, I did mention that we are watching along the Rio Grande and into South Texas, south of the area. There are a few model outliers that are showing some cloud cover lingering along the Rio Grande, possibly even some rain chances as you get towards Maverick County, Eagle Pass, southward down into Laredo. So this is our kind of reasonable worst case cloud cover forecast at 10 a.m., showing a few of those outliers and the possibility of that, and possibly some partly to mostly cloudy conditions along the Rio Grande, with mostly clear conditions elsewhere. And here's that reasonable worst case cloud cover forecast for 1 p.m., close or just after the time of the 90% obscuration. Again, we're watching along the Rio Grande for some possible additional cloud cover if a few of those model outliers do verify. But the majority of the area through the eastern hill country, San Antonio through Austin, should be mostly clear at this point. And then I mentioned on our summary slide at the beginning that we will be watching for some possible breezy conditions behind the front Friday night and into Saturday. This is the peak wind gust forecast for Friday and Friday night on the left, and then Saturday on the right. You can see some wind gusts 20 to 25 miles an hour possible behind this front. So if there's any tents that are being set up ahead of time or during the day of the eclipse, you want to make sure those are staked down properly. As far as the risks go throughout the week, pretty much we'll watch that warming trend Thursday and Friday ahead of the front, possibly some heat indices back into the 90s. And then Friday and Saturday behind the front, we'll watch for some fire weather conditions, some lower humidity in the air combined with those wind gusts that I mentioned could lead to some elevated fire risks that we have to watch for. Finally, we kind of want to point people to our hourly point forecast. We are now within the 7-day forecast that we produce here at the Austin San Antonio forecast office. And we do have a pretty slick website, weather.gov/forecast points, that you can go to and drop a pin anywhere in the US and get hourly forecast for that point for a number of different weather elements: temperature, wind speed, sky cover, humidity, percent chance of rain. You can get that in a tabular forecast and also in a hourly weather graph format. So that's the QR code for it if you're interested. We also have some select cities where we've made QR codes for throughout the hill country as well as San Antonio. Again, it's a pretty neat website you can point people towards if they want hourly forecasts now that we are within the 7-day forecast that we produce. So to kind of summarize here, we are expecting a cold front Friday, sometime midday or in the afternoon hours. Breezy conditions possible behind the front Friday night and into Saturday morning. Currently, the forecast is for dry and mostly clear conditions Saturday for the eclipse. However, we do have a few model outliers that are showing some possible cloud cover lingering along the Rio Grande and possibly some precip lingering along the Rio Grande from Eagle Pass down to Laredo. So we'll be watching that in our future briefings and hopefully fine-tuning this forecast and the forecast certainty as we go along here in our briefings Wednesday through Friday. So our next briefing again will be 10 a.m. Wednesday, and following that will be 11 a.m. 10 a.m. on the Thursday, October 12th, and then Friday, October 13th at 10 a.m. With that, I'll pause here if anybody has any questions. Again, you can type those into the questions box that we have. I don't see any right now. I'll hang on here for a minute or two if people do have any questions, and I'll be glad to answer these. We will be sending out these slides by email to everybody, as well as a link to the recording of the briefing. Any questions at all? I'll give it about another 30 to 60 seconds. I don't see anything yet. Okay, don't see anything. Again, we'll be sending out these slides and a link to the recording of the briefing here shortly, probably later this afternoon. And with that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up, and we'll see you again tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Thanks for joining.